Good morning. This is Avraham Shira. Welcome to our Friday talk, Erev Shabbat, Erev Rosh Hashanah. The whole year is coming down to this Shabbat. And we know that in Kabbalah, all things are included in all things. And the whole year is included in the first day of the year. And the last day of the year is the inclusion of everything that came before it. And so there is this Itkolalut of Olamot, the inclusion of all worlds in all worlds. And so as we come to the last days of the year, we should not feel any despair or any regrets about what we have done or could have done in terms of what we still can do. Because we can still do a lot. Because we're here now, and this is all we have is now. And the now is where we cause change. The change does not happen in the future, and the change does not happen in the past. The change happens in the now. And by changing the now, we actually impact the past and the present and the future. So this is a wonderful thing to remember as we come into these last days, because whatever we haven't prayed, we can pray now. And whatever we haven't learned, we can learn a piece of that now. And lo alecha amalacha legmor. So don't worry about if you haven't learned everything that you wanted to learn, or you haven't prayed everything you wanted to pray, or meditated everything that you wanted to meditate, because all the little efforts that we make now tie together, so to speak. The last days are like the final threads that a tailor stitches in a garment. It ties the whole garment together. And if the knot is good at the end of the thread, then it holds the whole garment together. And so too our avodat Hashem for this year. And lo ba HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'truni ala briot, that Hashem does not bring charges against people that they can't handle, that aren't, in their level of dealing with. So it's important to remember that on these days, and on Rosh Hashanah, of course, we begin again with a new slate, a new relationship to Hashem, a new relationship to time, a new relationship to our fellow man. And everything that we do in the beginning becomes an expression for the entire year. And so we want to be very careful. The Baal Shem Tov, the tradition is that he heard a voice in heaven that the stories of his life would become sugulot for Am Yisrael, and that if people tell the stories of the Baal Shem Tov on the first day of the week, it makes a good week, and on the first day of the month, a good month, and the first day of the year, a good year. So this also includes this idea of everything being connected together, and that we set the pathway from the beginning, and we try to have a straight path. It doesn't necessarily go straight, but we keep our compass on the point, and we're going to get where we need to go. Now, Shabbat, of course, is Otio Teshav, to return. We've learned before that the Ikar, essential tshuva, is returning a thing to its place. To return our entire soul to its place, which is a spark of the upper worlds, a spark of Gan Eden. To turn the entire creation to that Gan Eden over the 6,000 years. Again, we're weaving time in multiples of 6 and 7. And so returning something to its place also means cleaning up our houses at the end of the year. For Rosh Hashanah means that we're trying to get things back in their places. And even for each and every Shabbat, we do the same thing. And you notice the menuchat nefesh that you get, the rest of your soul, the pleasantness that you get by putting things in their place. Why is that? What does it matter if the glass is here or there? Is it really that big a deal? But rather, when you put things in their place, it gives naicha, menucha, rest to the soul, because it is a structure or order that is familiar to the neshama and to the nefesh. And so it's like when you walk into a dark room and you know the room, you can walk around and not bump into anything. There's no obstacles to the clarity of your consciousness. So when things are in their right place, there's no obstacles to feeling order. And order is what this whole creation is about, because the beginning we know was tohu vavohu, chaos, and Tahom Rabbah, the great depth, which is not a good place to go. And we want to restore order to that chaos. So the Torah, of course, is the ultimate document for order, and Shabbat is the ultimate day and time to enjoy the order that we've set at the end of the week, and of course at the end of the year. That's why you'll notice in Elul there's great chaos, there's upheaval in all kinds of places of our lives, changes in jobs, changes in relationships, changes in locations. A lot of things are changing in the month of Elul on the physical and the spiritual and the mental or emotional planes, because that's the wrapping up of the year, and that's the attempt to make some structure, to tie some loose ends up for the new year to come. Now, so when we tashev, we bring something back to its place. That's Shabbat, and that's Teshuvah. So they're all coming together, these concepts, and we see them in these letters, Shin, Bet, and Taf. Okay. If we wanted to go even further with the drasha, I guess we could. We could say that Bet is a bayit, a house, a kli, and Shin is always a symbol of fire. And so that we have this fire needs a kli, and a house needs warmth. So we need the fire and the bet together. And what happens is that the taf is a symbol of the end of things. The taf is a symbol of the protection that God gave to Cain when he sinned. So Shabbat is the ultimate refuge, the ultimate, pardon me for saying the ultimate city of protection, because we're going to a place where we're bringing the warmth and into a house, into the place where we can regroup ourselves, re-energize ourselves. Now, in Chodesh Elul, we also know that Hashem is closer to us, and there's days of Ratzon, which means that it's easier for our prayers to break through the psychic blockages that are in the mind spaces that we've created during the year. And we know that Hashem gave Moshe the second tablets during this time. And we know the difference between the first tablets. One of them is that Moses actually did the writing in the second tablets, which means that the work of God came down to the work of man, and they were joined up together. And so this is why it was so important why Moses write the second tablets, because without man taking responsibility for completing God's work, where is man? Where is our purpose? And so we don't want God to do everything. We want to do it ourselves with God. That's the ultimate purpose of man. So if I just want God to do everything for me and I can sit on my couch, and watch TV, then I've missed the purpose of creation. And these last tablets are the reminder that man, the tablets are not for God. The tablets are for man, and therefore Moses had to write them. And then Moses was also opening up a pathway that others could follow, a derech kavusha. And this, of course, this derech kavusha also returns to Shabbat. Vikar derech teshuvah shasa Moshe hu al yedei leda Hashem yitbarach b'chol makom. And the essential way, listen, this is really nice, that another way of understanding tshuva is to find God in everything. Now, it's easy to find God when you're up, and it's hard to find God when you're down. And the ups and the downs are natural, they're part of life, they're woven into every single part of creation. Whether it's a molecule, or it's a galaxy, or it's the ocean, or it's the moon, wherever you look, there's ups and downs and cycles of ascent and descent. And instead of fighting those cycles, we need to be smart and join them, like your daily sleep pattern. If you're fighting your sleep, that means that there's something either wrong with your pattern or your relationship to the pattern. And some people work at night and some people work at day, and some people are better at night and some people are better during the day. And so there are klalim, there are general principles, but still the goal that we have in Shabbat is to stop fighting the pattern, to start joining the pattern, to find out what works best for us and to use it. And we see this on Shabbat also, that Shabbat is a very orderly type of day, that we have certain things we do at certain times every single week. And you say, well, this gets repetitious, this gets boring, but that's not the case at all. The point of the repetition of Shabbat is to open up that space to contemplate higher things. And if I'm always changing my location, changing my my diet, changing my sleep on Shabbat, then I'm not actually carving spaces into my psychic world in order to receive new light. And the newness is on the inside and not on the outside. So I don't need to change my location so much as change the way I look at it. And that's hard for people. We're not creatures that naturally take to change. But Shabbat is a chance to do so because we stop the physical world. And by stopping all the details of the physical, we can enter the spiritual more easily. And to find Hashem in every place is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter if you're a tzaddik, if you're not a tzaddik, if you're a man, a woman, a teenager, an old person. It doesn't matter. The goal, this job, is to see that God is when I'm up and God is when I'm down. And not to be so thrilled with myself when I'm on a high with God, and not to be so depressed with myself when I'm not. And if I am, that means I have a problem with the high, or I have a problem with the low. Because, again, those ideas, those states of heart and mind are woven into the growth. And the real maturity is to be able to deal with both of them. And to find Hashem in each place, whether we're going up or down, the Rebbe says. For example, if a person is given new wealth, he becomes more powerful. He feels more independent. He feels less beholden to others. He feels power in his personal and his general life, inside the home and outside the home. All those things are actually very good things for serving Hashem, because they free up the mind to focus on what I need to focus on, which is the greatness of the Torah. So wealth is really designed for that. And that's why all the prophets had to be wealthy. And it wasn't just spiritual wealth, as people want to say. Now, what happens? With that wealth comes arrogance and an expansion of self-concept that is not necessarily realistic. And then what happens? I forget God. The first thing we do when we get self-filled is we forget Hashem and who made us wealthy and who made us powerful. And He only made us wealthy and powerful in order that we could help others and get closer to Him through that. So again, the Shabbat is the great equalizer, because on Shabbat, you see, there's a statement of the rabbis that on Shabbat, all the Jews are kings. Whether you're wealthy or poor, you just get to sit at your table, and whether you have 100 items on your table or 10 items, whatever you're eating, you still get that sense of being a king on Shabbat, because you're the master of your destiny for that moment, and you're in partnership with the master of all creation. And He's giving you a destiny to work with, and to be with Him through that. And so on Shabbat, all Jews are kings, and therefore it's the great equalizer, and we take out the expanded highs and the contracted lows. That why am I feeling down on Shabbat? Why am I feeling oppressed? By the work that I had to do on Friday? By the work I'm going to have to do Saturday night? Well, that just means that the Yetzer Hara is operating in my mind and trying to prevent me from enjoying the now. Because now is all you ever really have, and it's all you ever will have. And when you have now in Shabbat, well, then it's transcendental. Okay, so that's the way Shabbat is designed for us. And the last thing we want to do is receive God's blessing and then forget Him. That is the wrong message to send to heaven. That's going to create anger. And because who wouldn't be upset if you give your child a gift and then he throws it on the behind the cupboard and you never see it again? And the Rebbe brings an example of course, like Elisha ben Abuya, a great sage, and he was not a poor man, and he learned with the greatest rabbis of his generation, and he went up to heaven, to the highest levels, and he saw the angel Memtet sitting on a throne, and he said, "Oh, you see, there's more than God out there in the world," and he fell. So a person can go to the highest levels and fall terribly. And it's better not to go to the highest levels and not fall than it is to go somewhere where you can't handle it. And this we see a lot in Jerusalem. The people get high being in Jerusalem, and that high is not real. It's real for the moment that you're existing it, but it's certainly not a long-term status level that you've reached by getting off the plane and ending up at the kotel, and now you're Messiah. And that happens, a weekly basis, shall we say. But nonetheless, we don't need to, because all we need to do is keep perspective of who we really are. And the high is a gift from Hashem to bring you closer, and the low is a gift from Hashem to make you work to come back to Him, because He wants that effort. He wants that connection. So therefore, we need to request from Hashem that He bring us closer. On the last days of his life, Rabbi Nachman, a great tzaddik of his generation and time, was begging God to come closer. The Arizal was begging God to come closer before he died. The Baal Shem Tov also. All the great ones are still asking to get closer, because when you're close, you feel fulfilled. And whether or not you're the Baal Shem Tov or you're yourself, there's always going to be a dip. There's always going to be a yeridah. There's always going to be a moment where you're not at that level that you like being at. And so whether you're close or far, we still have to ask God to come closer, because it's an endless path. And of course, we know that when you're on a down and you don't feel good and you feel depressed and you feel far from Hashem and you feel like your service is not wanted and you're not sure if you want to even do this anymore. Do this, I mean, by keeping the Torah and pursuing the mitzvot. And even on the lowest levels of hell, the Rebbe says, V'asara kitri de mesavuta, to the 10 crowns of impurity, which are the shadow sfirot of the holiness. Even there, at the lowest places, I can still attach myself to God. How? Through my mind. By knowing that God is here, I actually cause that reality to be revealed. But if I don't know it, the reality stays hidden. When I declare that God is here in hell, God says, you know what? Look at that guy. He's in hell and he's declaring I'm there. I'm going to be there for him. But when I'm in hell and I say I'm in hell and I hate it and I don't want to be here and where's God left me? Then God says, really? I abandoned you? Well, I really didn't abandon you, but if you're insisting, then I'll have to show you what that's like. So we need to understand that we have the power of bringing Hashem into every situation by declaring it as so. No matter how bad you feel, no matter how much it hurts, no matter how lost you feel, all we have to do is say, Hashem, you're here with me. Hashem, you're here with me. And declare it with great faith and certitude, and it's going to be revealed to you how it's true. V'yigash Moshe le'Elohim ba'arafel. Moses got close to Hashem in the darkness, in the shadow, in the mist, where God seemed to be hidden. Because Moses knew God was in there. Just like we've learned before, the son of the king knows that the walls around the treasure are not real. The treasure is right here, in your mind. And your mind has the power to go through all the walls. And to taste that Kedusha of Shabbat. And God is in control of all these levels, and we can constantly strengthen ourselves with this teaching. Ayeka Hashem, where are you? Where's your glory? Right here and right now. Just have the chutzpah to say it and to believe it. Now, you don't have to go out and scream it to everybody else, but we have to start with ourselves, of course. So don't be afraid of your power of declaration. Don't be afraid to fulfill what they're telling us here. Try it. You'll like it. It'll work. And if we don't, then who do we have to blame? So this Erev Shabbat and this Erev Rosh Hashanah, I want to bless everybody with a little bit of chutzpah to Kedusha. A little bit of that Jewish chutzpah, in the right channel changes the world. In the wrong channel, it also changes the world, but in a way we don't want to see. But the chutzpah just means that God is here now. I might not see it, I might not feel it, I might not even like it, but I'm declaring it. And when I do, things happen. We shake them up in heaven. There has to be a response. Wherever you put your peg, that's your tent. So be courageous, be bold. Hazak ve'amatz libecha. Make yourself bold and strong, and know Hashem never abandons you, even after you leave this world and you leave this body. When you know that, you're never alone and you're never abandoned. Hashem is with you, and Shabbat is the place that He said, be with me now. Come to me now. Turn everything off and just be sitting quietly in your chair with me. And you'll see miracles, real miracles. Have a great Shabbat. Peace to you and to your families, to your friends, to your communities. You know, all the wars that we see around us are only to bring us to greater peace. And we can't get to that peace unless we get through the arguments and the fights because, well, we're carrying around a bit of baggage. So let's drop the baggage in Shabbat and enjoy the presence of now with Hashem. Shabbat Shalom.